Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Wednesday. It's May 17th. It is 2023. We have 7 games on the main slate to talk about here on today's podcast. Joined by my buddy Tim Buell, TastefulTides. Tim, what's happening, my friend?
No, not much, Stevie. Well, I watched a little bit of that NBA draft lottery. I don't know if you saw that at all, but how good does San Antonio run? I mean, that's just incredible. I don't know if that's the best spot for him to end up in San Antonio, but I mean, I'm pretty excited to watch that whole thing pan out for the next few years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the best spot either, but you look at that team and you're like, hey, there's obviously going to be a road DFS wise and betting wise for some production. So I mean, I'm not in the market of like being a fan of the Spurs. So I mean, the Magic. I mean, I think we have 2 first-round picks, like in the top 14 or something. So
yeah,
you got
11 and 6, I think.
Yeah, so 2 picks in the top 11. So very happy, as far as being a Magic fan. And I know, you're just kind of lost without hockey playoffs going on, but you're watching the NBA draft. But hey, listen, the Hurricanes and Panthers will be here soon enough. I'm excited for the Stars and Golden Knights series. I think that's going to be an awesome series. So
it really is. It is going to be a really, really awesome series. And, I don't think the NHL quite got what they wanted in terms of the final couple teams here, but it's still great hockey, and I'm excited to see what happens. I actually think the Hurricanes are going to win it all, but I could be wrong.
Not me. I just like, and I enjoy playoff hockey, but I mean, I feel like the Panthers have been overlooked all playoffs and they just keep winning. So, I mean, I don't think we can just write them off yet. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. So, I mean, NBA playoffs in full swing, NHL playoffs in full swing, and we got baseball over a month into the season now. A lot of data to go through, a lot of stuff to talk about. So, what's up, YouTube? Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday night, and thank you for hanging out with us here live. Let's jump in and get started. We start with Yankees at Blue Jays. 8.5 total in this game. Pick'em game. Cole and Bassett. Garrett Cole is a pick'em against Chris Bassett. It blew my mind when I saw that line earlier tonight. So I always find that interesting. Garrett Cole, 11.5, really expensive. I mean, he's Garrett Cole. He has a 27% K rate. He's a really good strikeout pitcher. He's elite against both sides of the plate. I mean, it's hard not, even at this price tag on a 7-game slate, not to have Cole up towards the top. The only thing that I will mention is the best strikeout pitcher in baseball is also on this slate with Spencer Strider. So it's not like Cole is an automatic lock today as the top overall arm. But I do think Cole is going to have lower ownership than Spencer Strider today. So what's your thoughts here on Garrett Cole?
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it perfectly. Like, Cole is obviously one of the most elite pitchers in all of baseball. I think that it's going to be hard, to pair Strider and Cole. So Cole is best used as I think he's going to be leveraged, because I think Strider is going to be more highly owned than Cole. And because I think people are going to be a little bit hesitant with this matchup going against Toronto, although Vlad did leave the game on Tuesday night, so I'm not sure kind of what his status is going to be. So that could end up making a difference. The only other thing that I would say about Cole that's a little bit concerning is that his swinging strike percentage is actually, about 3 to 4% lower than it has been in past years. So I don't know if we're starting to see a little bit of a decline with him. I mean, obviously he's still super, super elite, and we'll have to see kind of like what the public says about Strider. So if Cole's going to be significantly lower owned, then he's obviously fine for tournaments, whereas most likely Strider is the more ideal candidate for cash games.
Yeah, so, I mean, the strikeout rate down for Cole a little bit. He was 32. I mean, not a little bit. 5% is a lot when you're looking at strikeout rate. So 32.4% last season. He's at 27.4. But like digging through his advanced numbers, there's not a lot of difference. I will say the cutter is a pitch that he's not using as much this year, and that was one of his like go-to pitches. So using a little bit more fastball, maybe that's generating less strikeouts because I mean the cutter last year was like a 20% ish. I think it was 18 to 20% like put away pitch for him last year. So not using that a lot, and honestly, he's just not getting a lot of whiffs on the curveball. Like you look at the whiff rate for the curveball last season, 17%. This year 17%. Last year, 37%. So the curveball is the biggest like thing for Garrett Cole right now. He's just not generating as much vertical movement on the curveball or horizontal movement, I guess. So it's interesting. Do we think that's a potential fix? Sure. Do we still think Garrett Cole is one of the best pitchers in baseball? Yes. But if we're going to be nitpicky, because I mean these two guys are really expensive, like it's not even close to the best pitcher in strikeout wise in baseballs this year. We talked about it the other day. Like this guy, Spencer Strider, has a 20.3% swinging strike rate. Garrett Cole's not even in the top 30. So. Good point. Great point. Derek, we were talking about that pre-show. Course slates. Gotta love them. Gotta hate them.
Oh man, I'm so sick of course slates already, and we only had 2 this week, and I'm already over it. I'm so glad they're not on this main slate.
Yeah, I mean it's always interesting when you have cores. I mean it's so like you have 2 really bad pitchers and they both pitch well. And it's just like, that's just how it goes.
And Nick Senzel's Nick Senzel's my lowstone red, and he of course hits a home run, but I'm already so dead it doesn't matter. So,
speaking of core slates, tomorrow's 5-game slate. I'll be on Grinders Live tomorrow morning with Dean. If you want to hear thoughts on that 5-game slate, so there you go. All right, we got to talk about Bassett. Bassett 7,400, coming off of a complete game shutout against the Atlanta Braves. Definitely one of his better games. I don't even know if I'd say this year. Probably one of the better games for him in his career. Just pitched lights out in that game. It's back-to-back games where he's had like really strong outings. One was against Pittsburgh, to be expected, and then the other was against Atlanta. And Atlanta's a great team. We'd like to target high strikeout pitchers against this team. I played Gaussman quite a bit in tournaments tonight. I am on the fence on Bassett today. I think there is plenty of strikeout upside in this lineup. What are your thoughts on Bassett?
I'm kind of on the fence also. It's obviously not a great spot. Bassett's kind of like he hovers around like the 20% K rate, maybe 21% K rate. The walks have been over 11% so far this season. So that's kind of a little bit worrisome. Yeah, he's been on fire his last 2 starts. I guess I'm neutral to it. He might be a guy that like I would say you come in at the field, like whatever ownership's going to be. Like if he's going to be like 10%, I would just match it if I was making 20 teams or 150 maxing. I don't think he's realistically going to make my 1 to 3 lineup, like my 3 max pool. I don't see that really happening for this slate, but I also wouldn't necessarily fault anybody if they wanted to take a shot on him. But I know that he's flashed the ceiling. I just don't see that he's going to hit his ceiling in this matchup that many times.
Yeah, a tough matchup. His walks concern me. I mean, this is a team that has so much power that, like, if he starts to struggle walking guys, that they can punish him with 1 or 2 big hits. So that's why I'm on the fence. I will say, like, I'm going to have interest in Cole and Strider, so finding that, like, mid-range SP2 is somewhat tough today. I think there's a couple options, but it's tougher today than it is on like a 12-game slate. So let's talk bats. Any interest here in the Yankees?
I think you have to have some interest, but it's not really like I don't think they're going to be like a top 5 stack even on this kind of shortish slate. Obviously, Aaron Judge can always be a great one-off, especially if he's going to go low owned. Like we've seen him this week at like 5% ownership go for like 30 fantasy points. So it's like if he's going to be a forgotten guy, you could definitely add him to any amount that you want in tournaments. Gleyber Torres is always interesting because second base is usually a very, very weak position, and we know that he's got high upside. And then I'm assuming Jake Bowers will be in the lineup. He's min price, like he does come with pinch hit risk, but he's super, super cheap. So if you want to somehow try to jam in Golden Strider, he might be one of those guys you have to put into your team.
Yeah, I like the Bowers call. He's been hitting leadoff here recently, 2K. For some reason, they don't want to price these guys up. So don't mind taking advantage of the salary savings for Bowers. He's a power guy, hitting leadoff. He's been getting on base lately. And he stole a base the other night. Like it was that you don't have to, like, you're not going to expect that every night from Jake Bowers. I'm just saying it's nice to kind of get a stolen base from him. So any interest in the Toronto bats against Cole?
Not as a full stack, but Cole does, he does sometimes give a home run. So if you want a one-off of Vlad or one-off a Springer or Chapman or Bichette in a lineup here and there, I think that's a really, really strong play. And they're going to be very extremely low owned. So I wouldn't stack them, but just getting a couple one-offs I think is a great play.
All right, we got Seattle at Boston, 9.5 total in this game. The Red Sox a slight favorite on most books. Gonzalez going up against my boy Bayo. Sorry. Marco Gonzalez, 7,100 here. Red Sox better against right-handed pitching than they are against left-handed pitching, but I still don't think I can play Marco Gonzalez today.
Yeah, I think Mark Gonzalez is a pretty easy cross off. He's just not like an elite fantasy option. He's not a high strikeout guy. He doesn't really do anything particularly well that we want in fantasy. And it's not like, he is pretty cheap, but there are more talented pitchers on this slate that are coming in cheaper than he is. So for me, he would be. I think I would X him out even in like a 150 setting. Like I really don't have any interest in him at all.
Low strikeouts, high xFIP, very hittable pitcher. He's even he's not generating as many ground balls here recently either. So that obviously doesn't help. Bayo on the other side of this game, 5,700 just seems too cheap. If we're looking at just pure on ceiling and upside, this is one of the top pitching prospects in baseball coming into last year. He's been kind of shaky, but if we look at it, man, 3.7 xFIP, 22.5% Ks, 11.7% swinging strike rate. We know there's plenty of strikeouts in the Seattle lineup. I don't love the ballpark. There's a ton of power in the Seattle lineup. Don't get me wrong, but Bayo at 5,700 just seems underpriced today.
I love Bayo. I think that he is by far my favorite of these cheap options. Like you can go Strider, Bayo, and then you can do basically whatever you want, right? I love that. I think there'll be some more popular pitchers that people will go to in the mid range that we'll get to later on in the show. But I really like Bayo. I hope that he doesn't really project well tomorrow, so that he'll come in lower owned, right? I think he's a great play, and I think he's just way too cheap.
Yeah, it's a pricing thing for me. In 150, I'm getting exposure to Bayo and I'm getting exposure to Seattle bats because I could see the upside in the Seattle bats is there. But overall, if you look at this lineup, there's the lineup they rolled out today, 25% K for Rodriguez, 25 for Suarez, 29 for Riley, 33.5% for Hernandez, Tremel, 37.5%. So there is plenty of strikeout upside in this lineup. You got guys like France and Crawford at the top that don't hit for a ton of power, but they put the ball in play a lot. So, I think Bayo at this price is great. He's going to give up a run or two. He's going to give up a home run or two. You're just hoping for 5 to 8 Ks, 5 to 6 innings, and get you like 18 at 5,700. I think that's fine. Richie wants to know how chalky we think that combination will be. I mean, if Adam Wainwright wasn't 5,400, I would say Bayo combination probably really chalky. I think with Wainwright being $3,000 too cheap, could potentially help that. Wainwright's going to project well. He has, years of good projected like ratings and stuff. And I mean, it's not like the Brewers are a great offense. So I think projections wise.
Yeah. I think Strider and Burns is going to be the chalk.
Yeah. Maybe. Burns having the monster game finally kind of worked out.
Burns is going to be projecting really well tomorrow. Like, that he is against all those righties. Like, I think Burns is going to be like that mid-range chalk. So I don't know if going to Strider Bayo is going to be like a very, very popular option.
Also, God, there's some pitchers. Let's keep going. There's pitchers I like today. This is a really interesting slate.
This is a very, very interesting slate. I really, really like this slate.
As far as Seattle bats, I mean, he gives up a ton of hard contact. He does generate a lot of ground balls. There's not a big like fly ball hitter in this lineup outside of Riley. So like my favorite would be like Rodriguez or Riley. But honestly, this is definitely a stack you could look at as well. It's a great ballpark in Fenway. There's right-handed and left-handed power in this lineup. So if Bayo is not pitching well, it could go really well. But I mean, this kid's generating 62% ground balls this year. So I mean, he's going to give up a home run or two. It's just I don't know if he gets blown up in this spot. Kind of why I have interest in him on the other side.
Yeah, I don't really have much interest in Seattle. Like, obviously, keep an eye out for the weather. This is a great home run park. Like, if it's super, super hot, wind blowing out, maybe we change our stance on Bayo. But, Seattle is a talented team. But Bayo is, like, his walks are down, too. Like, everything's really pointing to me that, like, this kid's going to start delivering what we all expected him to. And I'm not really in on Seattle very much.
As a Sox fan, I hope that happens. Marco Gonzalez is someone I don't mind picking on. Like I said, when we were talking about him, he's definitely giving up more fly balls this year, giving up more home runs as well. And I mean, obviously you got Turner who should hit well here. The guy that I really have a lot of interest in, I want to see where he hits in this lineup. He's really cheap. We talked about like second base being a position that's kind of hit or miss, but Pablo Reyes is someone that's up with the big league club right now. He's 2K on FanDuel. He's minimum price on Yahoo, and he's 2.5K on DraftKings. If he can slide ahead of some of these lefties and maybe hit in this like 5 or 6 hole today, could be great value. So that's one I'm watching because he is so cheap. I hope, like I said, I hope he cracks the lineup. I know that Arroyo's not even close to getting back, so like I think he'll be in the lineup today. I would be shocked if he's not in the lineup today. The other one that I want to see if is in the lineup or not, I know that like they've talked about moving this guy, but if Dahlbeck is in the lineup or not, he's a guy with some young power. Be a great spot for him to go out and hit a home run and then get traded. So definitely some cheap bats to potentially look at here. Yeah.
Don't forget about Devers. I mean, a lot of people shy away from left on left, but I mean, Marco's not going to be striking anybody out. So I think that Devers is going to be hitting the ball. He's going to be hitting the ball hard. So don't forget about Devers as like a tournament option that I don't think is going to be very chalky.
Nick Allen just hit a home run. If anybody was watching YouTube and watched my facial reaction.
Oh.
I have that game stacked every which way, and I don't have any Nick Allen. So.
Yeah.
What the heck? All right. Tampa Bay at New York facing the Mets today. No total in this game. We know Senga is pitching for the Mets. It sounds like it's going to be Taj Bradley or Cooper Criswell pitching for Tampa. And I've seen it either way, both ways. I don't know who's going to pitch.
I had it as Bradley, but maybe I was wrong.
I mean, Mark Tompkin is the beat reporter for the Rays for the Tampa Bay Times, and he's one of the guys that I trust a lot. And he said it could be either one of these guys. So, great follow, by the way, if you're into following beat writers. He's been doing it for a long time. And like when he was like one of the best follows when like the opener situation was happening with Tampa all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, Bradley is 9K against the Mets. He showed some promise in a little bit of a short stint that he was up with the club earlier this year. I mean, 9K is a tough price tag against a Mets offense. If it is Bradley, are we paying this price for him?
I would say no way. Like, he's more of like a 22% AAA, 22% K rate guy in AAA. Like, he had a couple huge games at the major league level, but that's not really who he is. So I think
he's an uber prospect for what it's worth. Like,
I know,
in baseball,
right. Yeah, but he hasn't really shown that elite K stuff in the minors, I guess is what I'm saying. I agree with you. His pedigree is amazing. Like, he probably is going to be like an elite talent. I just don't know if he's quite there yet. And I think that his price is inflated because of what we've seen in a very, very small sample size. And like you said, against the Mets, it's a really, really bad spot. So, I mean, not the worst spot, but it's pretty bad. And I think his price is just too high.
Yeah, Cooper Criswell, by the way, not a big strikeout pitcher, and tends to struggle with command. Also, like, overall, I feel like Tampa, with the injuries that they have right now, like, I'm not saying they're forced to call up Taj Bradley, but they need quality pitching. And, like, I mean, this kid has uber talent. You know, you don't get to be number 2 in your team's, like, prospect ranking by not being talented. Top 50 in baseball coming into the season. So, good command, above average fastball, above average slider. Like, that's solid stuff. So if he was at 9K, I think I'd have more interest in him here. Like, if he's 7,500, we're talking more about this. I mean, we just watched Chirinos pitch really good. Dean wants to know in chat why you're hating on his Panthers so much.
Because, I mean, I've got my reasons, Dean. I'm sick of the Panthers. They're a bunch of frauds. Bobrovsky's a fraud. That's just what it is. So, I'm sorry, Dean.
Shots fired. All right. Man, I'm on the fence on Bradley, man. The Mets
he's too expensive. He's too expensive.
But the Mets lineup that they rolled out on Tuesday, just no power outside of Alonso. So I don't know. The Mets lineup, the strikeouts are not there, but if this guy can continue with the big strikeout rate, for what it's worth, like, we saw him pitch a little bit, you're not going to sustain a 38% K rate with a 12% swinging strike rate. That's all I'm going to say. Senga, hey, 9,700 for Senga, going up against Tampa. What are the easiest fades on the slate for me?
I completely agree. I was worried you were going to say something else.
No, too expensive.
Yeah, he's way too expensive. This matchup's way too tough. I actually don't mind getting to some Rays bats just because I think people are going to be kind of scared off this matchup. But the Rays are just so talented, and they could just break the slate every single night. So I think the Rays make for a really, really strong contrarian stack. And I have absolutely no interest in Senga.
Yeah, he's just too expensive in a tough matchup. Can't do it. We're going to St. Louis, where we got Brewers and Cardinals, 8 total. Brewers a slight 118 favorite here. Burns and Wainwright facing off against each other. Burns looked great in his last start. Finally kind of having a start where he was dominant. Still walked 4 people. I mean, that's still like the concern, that like the command is still the concern for me when it comes to Corbin Burns. 8,600 for Burns. What's your thoughts?
I really like him. I'm just worried that his ownership's going to get way too high. I'm not so concerned. Like, I still believe in his long-term talent. I don't really believe in the St. Louis team with all these righties. So I'm really high on Burns.
Yeah, I mean, the St. Louis lineup is very good when they're hitting. They're one of the best teams in baseball. They just haven't been hitting to start the year. So I think Burns is a guy where if he's going to be really chalky, I might get off of him because, I mean, his struggles this year has been righties. Like, it's just, I talked a little bit last time we had him about, like, the concerns of, like, the velocity and the movement of his pitches a little bit being down. They were still down against Kansas City for what it's worth. So it wasn't like he just found everything in Kansas City. He just faced a bad offense. I worry about Burns in this spot. If he's uber chalky, I might be underweight on him in this slate. So
I don't mind that call. I guess I don't just like to wait and see what his ownership's going to be. But I really like his long-term skill set.
Oh, no. Listen, I am a very firm believer that Corbin Burns is going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball by the end of the year. Not saying that. I'm just saying with his struggles to righties, with the low strikeout rates of the Cardinals, with their high walk rates and his command issues, like there's a recipe for Burns to fail. And if he's going to be like chalky on a 7-game slate, I can see being underweight on him. That's all.
Yep.
I like to play devil's advocate. That's what I like
I hear you, man.
Yeah. Wainwright is 5,400. I already said that I feel like Wainwright is way underpriced today. Not saying Milwaukee, they are way worse against left-handed pitching than they are against right-handed pitching. Wainwright in his 2 starts has not looked great at all. But Adam Wainwright should never be 5,400, like ever. Like he should never be 5,400. Like he went out and he got crushed against the Red Sox last time out, and they lowered his price $2K. I think he's worth mentioning that he is a solid punt option today because he's at punt price. He's the lowest price pitcher on DraftKings today.
I don't mind him. I just like Bayo better.
I like Bayo better too.
That's my thought. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't mind Wainwright. I just think Bayo is a way better play. Wainwright could obviously be fine in this matchup, and you're right, he is way too cheap, but so is Bayo. So I'd much rather. I hope Wainwright comes in higher owned than Bayo. I hope he's projected better. I think that's an amazing pivot to go to Bayo. I don't mind Wainwright, but there's no way I'm going to play him if he's chalky. Like no chance.
I will say I watched some of that start against the Red Sox. I tend to watch Red Sox games. I say it all the time, but he actually didn't look bad through the first 3 or 4 innings. I think he gave up a couple runs in the 2nd or 3rd inning, and then like gave up back-to-back home runs in the 5th. So kind of towards the end, and that could be just stamina, from not pitching, being out. So I think Wainwright's in play. I'm with you. I like Bayo better. We talked about him. As far as the Milwaukee bats, Yelich is banged up right now. One of the reasons that I think that could be a better spot for Wainwright if Yelich is still out, because it's a back issue. And this guy has had back issues for the last couple of seasons. Went from being one of the best hitters in baseball to having back issues. So if he's out of the lineup, we're potentially looking at a little bit of value here. I think Adames at 4K and Tellus at 4,300 would be my 2 favorite bats from Milwaukee today.
Yeah, I really like Tellez, especially if Wainwright's going to be chalky. I think that would make for like a really good contrarian stack. But yeah, I really like Adames too. Tellez, Bryce Terang, I think his name is. I might have pronounced that wrong. He would make for a really strong play as well. But yeah, it really depends on St. Louis Wainwright's ownership, how much I would get to Milwaukee. If he's going to be chalky, I would really load up on Milwaukee.
St. Louis bats against Burns. I mean, I think it's an interesting contrarian stack if Burns is going to be super chalky. But I don't think I personally am not playing like one-offs from this team today.
I agree with that completely. I really don't have any interest in St. Louis bats. I'm gonna side with Burns.
Kick off the new year with new gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles, and much more. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost and broken replacements. If you lose or break your pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. With Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good. To date, they have donated over 20 million meals to fight hunger with Feeding America. If you don't love them, exchange them for a new pair or return them free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. Their team always has your back. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best year deal of the new year. Go to shadyrays.com, use code RotoGrinders for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. We got Braves. We got Rangers. 7.5 total in this game. Braves, a 162 favorite. We got Strider. We got Eovaldi. Listen, Texas has been solid this year. I'm not going to hate on this team. They've been a top 5 team in baseball against right-handed pitching this year. Spencer Strider is just the best strikeout pitcher in baseball right now. And anytime he's going to be on the hill, I don't care who he's facing, I'm going to have interest in him at this point. So, I mean, he's going to continue to be the top arm for me on any slate. He might get touched up for a run or two in this game. But, I mean, you can almost say, like, this is a guy we're locking in for 8+ strikeouts every start right now.
Yeah, like I have absolutely I love Strider. Like his he strikes out so many guys, his pitch count gets elevated, but like who cares? Like he's gonna strike out, 11 guys. And it's just I love him. I'd much rather get to him than Cole. I'll pay the $500 extra on DK. It's just I think it's an easy choice. Strider's definitely the guy for cash games, and I really like the matchup. So I'm all about Strider. I would plan on getting overweight him in tournaments. I don't care the ownership, and yeah. So I mean, I think he's the best fantasy asset in baseball right now.
Yeah, just fantastic strikeout pitcher. His numbers are they're just nutty. They're elite. They're beyond elite. They're best in baseball kind of thing. So. Nathan Eovaldi on the other side of this game, 10-1 for Eovaldi. He's been someone that, I mean, I have no issues playing him in certain matchups. Obviously, last time out against Oakland, he's thrown over 8 innings in 3 straight games. I mean, this is just a tough matchup. But, I mean, I think we have to respect the fact, like, Nathan Eovaldi has been pitching great. Atlanta is a strikeout team. Like, he might be that like sneaky leverage pitcher today over Garrett Cole. I mean, he's had better strikeout stuff than Garrett Cole this year.
Yeah, I have no issue with him in tournaments at all. Obviously, Cole is probably safer, but he definitely is a better play than Senga or whoever's pitching for the Rays. So, like, if you need somebody else that's like a pivot away from Cole, I have no issue getting to Eovaldi. But man, like, he's never been this expensive, I'd assume, in like his whole career of being an MLB pitcher. Like that's peak pricing. It's not a great matchup, but that should keep his ownership very, very low. So if you want to do like a contrarian build of, double pay up and get some really, really cheap bats, it's okay. Like he's pitching great. He's got a massive ceiling. So I don't hate it.
I mean, it's just a chasing ceiling type of spot. I really don't have interest in bats in this game overall.
I don't either, at all. I mean, you could always play Acuna. You could always play these Atlanta guys, but really, I don't have that much interest.
We're moving along. We got Cleveland at Chicago taking on the White Sox today. This game is currently at 9 total. Slightly pick 'em game. Very small favorite to the Guardians. -116. Clevenger and Battenfield. Any interest here in Battenfield going up against the White Sox?
Not really, just because I prefer getting to Bayo. I'd rather pitch Wainwright, to be honest with you, over Battenfield. No, I really don't have any interest in him at all. Or Clevenger, really.
Yeah, not a ton of interest in Battenfield for me. I made the mistake of playing him last time out against Detroit because his numbers were okay and they're bad, but that didn't work out. I mean, I have slight interest in Clevenger today as like a cheap SP2 type play. He's been absolutely awful this season. His xFIP is over 6. I mean, it's not really helping my case, but I will say with Ramirez on what is it, bereavement list, right? He's out.
Yes.
So with Ramirez
and Naylor left the game on Tuesday.
That's what I was about to say. So Naylor left the game. Ramirez out of lineup. This could be one of the weakest lineups we have all day. So while I don't like Clevenger, I stack against him a lot. He might just draw like a really easy lineup today. So I don't want to like instantly X him out because if Naylor's not in this lineup, they're likely not going to have a guy over 200 ISO and maybe only 1 or 2 guys with Wobas over 300 total. So just could potentially just draw a really bad lineup. So that's why I have some slight interest in Clevenger here night before, but it's a lineup thing.
That's a good call, Stevie. I forgot about Ramirez being on the bereavement list, and so yeah, this could end up being a really, really, really watered down Cleveland lineup.
I mean, they're already one of the worst teams in baseball against right-handed pitching, and if you take out Ramirez and Naylor in that lineup, they just have no power whatsoever. So
yeah,
Cleveland bats. I mean, you can play Quan here. He's going to get on base a couple times in this game. It's just whether or not like he gets on base and steals a base, like kind of upside. 4,400 for a guy you're kind of banking on a stolen base from is kind of tough because he's not going to hit a home run unless it's just one of those random nights. But he's probably my favorite play. If Naylor's in the lineup, ton of interest in Naylor at 3,300.
Yeah, I think I'd rather. I like Jimenez too. Just because it kind of fills that weak second base position. He's a little bit cheaper than Quan. He does steal a couple bases here and there. But yeah, like Rosario was 3,700, but I don't have a lot of interest in this Cleveland team. The bats on this slate overall are a little bit weird, right? Like there's not one, like that's why I really like the slate for tournaments, because there's not one team that's like, yeah, like I can't wait to play this stack. Like there really isn't that team on the slate.
White Sox bats against Battenfield. A team that could potentially go a little overlooked today just because of the slate. Not my favorite. Benintendi has been struggling, but he's someone that I think is going to make good contact in this spot, facing a guy that gives up a lot of hard contact and fly balls to lefties. So a ground ball hitter like Benintendi could benefit. Moncada is a ground ball hitter. He could benefit from this spot. Sheets is someone that I've been playing a lot recently. I don't mind looking at maybe like a mini stack, but Gavin Sheets at 2,500, probably my favorite play from the White Sox today.
This is definitely the team where, like, if you wanted to double up, pay up for pitching, and then do like a full White Sox stack, this would be an okay play, right? Like the White Sox are horrible, but like we said, there's not a lot of like high end stacks that we really want to get to on the slate. So if you wanted to do like a Strider, Cole, then you get to Sheets and a couple of other Benintendi and a couple of these other cheap Chicago bats. I mean, I say that's a viable strategy. Are they bad? Yes, but there really isn't a lot of opportunity cost. So I say that's an okay play.
All right. We got one more. We're finishing out with this slate's going to be over pretty early. 8:00 games on the East Coast.
I know. I really like these. I really like these sprint slates, like where everything just gets done quickly and then you're done. Like I love those slates.
You're sweating out everything at one time. You're not waiting for the West Coast games to start.
Right.
Yeah. Cubs and Astros in Houston, 9 total in this game. The Astros a 162 favorite. We got Smiley and France facing off against each other. Any interest here in Drew Smiley?
So I've done 3 shows with you this year, and every single one of them has had Drew Smiley on them. So because you always love Drew Smiley.
Not today.
I figured not today. I was like, if he likes him today, then he's got a serious Drew Smiley problem. But yeah, I don't have any interest in Drew Smiley. I do have a little bit of interest in JP France just because of that price and the matchup. I think he'd be like a somewhat interesting SB2 as a pivot away from like Burns. Like if Burns is super, super chalky. But absolutely no thank you on Drew Smiley.
I do like Drew Smiley, and I like what he's doing. He's kind of reinvented himself, and he's been pitching great. This team doesn't strike out against left-handed pitching. They strike out against right-handed pitching. They don't strike out against left-handed pitching. I think this is a tough spot for Smiley. I think there's a lot of pitchers on this slate. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play Mr. Drew today. I do, however, have some slight interest in the other side of this game, though. I mean, JP France has not been pitching terrible. My biggest concern is there's a lot of downside to not having strikeout upside on this slate. I think he goes out and he throws a solid game. I think the lineup potentially helps him with some strikeouts here today. What are your thoughts on JP France?
I really like him. Like I was saying, like I think he's a great contrarian play, like as a pivot away from Burns in the mid range. I think he's obviously not like a great pitcher, but I think this matchup's really going to help him, and so I really like him for tournaments.
Any interest in the Cubs bats today?
No. I mean, I really don't have any. Bellinger's day to day, Horner's on the IL. That's a huge blow to the Cubs. So I'm out on the Cubs.
Yeah, it's gonna be a really weak lineup. Another like one of those lineups you got to really be paying attention to. Houston bats. I mean, I don't love the idea of like stacking against Smiley because he's just generating so much soft contact, but I mean, you're going to have a lot of balls put in play in this spot for Houston today.
Yeah, I don't mind like an Alex Bregman or obviously Jordan is always great. But yeah, I think they're better as like a skinny stack or mini stack, not a full stack. But I don't mind getting, attacking Smiley on the slate at all.
Reds and Rockies combined for 4 runs. Oh my gosh.
Oh. That's so
What's
bad.
crazy, and I talked about it on the podcast yesterday, and this is baseball variance at its best, but I would have stacked that game in pretty much any ballpark with those two pitchers. It just doesn't work out sometimes. So it's funny when it doesn't. And if you're a firm believer, like if you're Mr. Chief Justice, where you don't love stacking cores, tonight's one of those nights where you're probably looking really good. So, all right, let's play the morning grind game, and then we will get out of here today. Seven game slate, very fun. Again, I'll be on Grinders Live tomorrow morning, breaking down the early slates under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who you got today?
JP Sears.
You mean France?
Oh yes, France. Yeah, my bad.
I'll go with my boy Bayo from Boston.
Yeah.
Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
I wish we knew who was pitching for Tampa, but Senga.
I think it's going to be Bradley.
Yeah, well, I'll take Senga just to be safe.
I'm going to go Corbin Burns. Don't at me.
Oh.
Over 4K to hit a home run today. Who's going yard?
I'm going to go Gleyber Torres.
All right. The slate's really interesting for pitching. For bats. Like, there's not like a team that's like jumping off the page to me, and like I have to play hitters from that team today, which I hate those kind of slates. Yes, I am definitely stalling. I know who my cheap bet is. Dang, man. I like the Torres call. Give me Nolan Arenado to hit another one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Dean, there's a Grinders Live early show tomorrow. You should check the schedule, buddy. You're on it with me.
I have to do an early Grinders Live with him on Thursday. It's nothing like waking up early, hanging out with Dean. Like, I mean, talk about the ultimate black cloud day, right? Like,
I think that I hope there's I have it on my schedule that there's an early show tomorrow. But who's your favorite bat under 4K to get 2 hits?
I'm gonna go Gavin Sheets.
All right, I like it. I love that pick, by the way. But Rob Refsnyder from Boston, 2,800, potentially hits leadoff in this game. Like him a lot today. Give me a stack to score 6 or more runs.
That's tough on today's slate. I'm gonna go with the White Sox.
Ooh, I like it. Oh, the more that we like break down this slate, the more interest that I have in the Red Sox. So give me Boston to score 6 or more runs today. All right, Tim, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I apologize about my camera. It was all foggy, so I didn't want to change it mid-show. So I apologize. I had to shut my camera off to people watching on YouTube and to you, Stevie.
Good. I don't care. It's all good, man. We'll be back Thursday talking some more baseball. Hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday. Hope you tune in and hang out on the Grinders Live show with me and Dean tomorrow morning, even though he doesn't remember about it. But we
hope Dean shows up. Maybe he doesn't even show up. I don't know.
He'll show up. But all right, we'll be back tomorrow. Hope everyone has a fantastic Wednesday. We'll see you then.